A series of nuclear plant accidents in Fukushima Prefecture reminds us of the 1986 Chernobyl disaster, the worst in the history of nuclear power generation. Experts say the leaks at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant are far smaller than those at Chernobyl.
Atsushi Takeda is an expert on safety issues at nuclear power plants. He was involved in an international project to stop the proliferation of radioactive materials after the accident at Chernobyl. He designed a stone coffin, a huge architectural object that could cover an entire nuclear reactor. He said this kind of system is not necessary for the troubled power plant in Fukushima. Takeda, who is with the Nuclear Safety Research Association, says the problems at the Fukushima No. 1 power station will not develop into a critical situation that requires such a stone coffin. He said that in the accident at Chernobyl, nuclear fission inside the reactor not only did not stop, but accelerated. He said it was like stepping on the accelerator instead of the brakes. Takeda says that at the Fukushima power plant, the operation of the reactors was automatically halted safely when the earthquake struck, judging from what he saw on TV reports. He says the system is designed to stop reactors when an earthquake is detected, and that the system is installed at all nuclear power plants. Takeda says the troubles at the Fukushima plant began when the cooling systems failed. He says various chemical reactions occurred because of the retained heat. He says each reaction was caused by a small amount of energy, and the whole situation gradually became worse. The size of the accident is clearly different from the size at Chernobyl. In the accident at the 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant in 1979, the temperature of the core rose just like the reactors at the Fukushima power plant. Takeda said the accident at 3 Mile Island occurred while the reactor was still in operation, while the troubles at the Fukushima reactors did not begin until after all operations were halted. He said that's why the initial energy was much smaller. However, Takeda pointed out that the situation following the initial trouble seems to be worse than what happened at 3 Mile Island. Takeda says a big difference is that 3 Mile Island's trouble occurred inside the reactor and the fuel rods were damaged and the reactors suffered a meltdown. But he says safety devices attached to the reactor were working normally. Takeda says the trouble involved in the reactor's pressure containment, but other things were working fine. Takeda says that at the Fukushima No. 1 power plant, electrical systems near the reactors became submerged by the onrushing water, causing them to lose almost all of their functions. He says that's why they cannot manipulate the control systems, motors, or valves. He says these systems did not work the way they were supposed to. Asked what needs to be done to end this crisis, Takeda said they must employ all means possible to cool down the reactors. Takeda says the most important thing is to cool down the reactors. He says they must do all they can to pump water into them. He says the heat of the nuclear fuel is generated by the process in which radioactive materials created by nuclear fission are changing into something else and emitting heat. That's why the heat will decrease as the days go by. He says the last resort is to pump in seawater, the procedure that is currently underway, but he says the situation will end eventually if they try everything they can think of.